Have you ever wondered what the scariest thing to find in a completely empty house is? It's not blood or ghosts. It's a perfect, crystal clear silence, broken only by one word: betrayal. At 17, I learned what it means when the world you believed was home dissolves into dust, and the only goodbye is a soulless phrase on a yellowed scrap of paper. This is the story of how I rose from the ashes and what happened when the ghosts of the past decided to come back for me. I was 17 when my family, my parents, and my brother vanished. They moved 2,000 miles away to another state without deeming it necessary to say a word. 12 years later, after I had finally built myself up, they decided it was time to reconnect. I returned to an absolutely empty home. The walls, usually filled with the echo of life, resonated with an icy void. A note lay on the kitchen counter. It was printed, cold, and impersonal, and it was the cruelest message I had ever had to read. It simply said, "You'll figure it out." I spent hours running through the past years, trying to understand, what had I done wrong? What sin deserved such excommunication? I convinced myself they were just tired of pretending they loved me, but the brutal truth was, they had never even pretended. When I was 13, I baked a birthday cake for my mom from start to finish with trembling pride. She called it clumpy. At 15, I tutored my brother through his final exams late into the night, and he, without blinking, called me a know-it-all and slammed the door right in my face. At 16, I gave my father my entire paycheck so he could cover bills. But later, when I dared to remind him, after he called me useless, he just yelled at me. I was always useful, but never loved. My parents and my brother, my only family, packed up and moved 2 states away without telling me. I found out from the landlord a week later. I had only 1 week to move out because they had canceled the lease early. I slept at a friend's house for 3 nights until I ran out of options. Eventually, I found shelter in the back of a rented storage unit, paid for with the last fragments of my savings. I snuck into the YMCA to shower, ate peanut butter with a spoon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I applied for jobs on free library computers and pretended everything was okay. Finally, I was hired as a night shift server at a diner. The manager, though gruff, was fair. She paid me cash under the table until I could get an ID. Once, when I nearly collapsed from exhaustion, she let me nap in the break room. I literally clawed my way to the top. I bought a prepaid phone, saved every single receipt, watched free YouTube tutorials on financial literacy and goal setting. The first year was a sheer fight for survival, but I endured. The turning point came with an offer from a diner regular for a temp job cleaning out office files. It paid triple what I made serving. I said yes. That job led to another, and that to another. I learned quickly, showed up early, and wasn't afraid to ask questions. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched a consulting business. Just me, a folding table, and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors under me, my own office, and a client roster I used to only dream about. And by 29, I was officially a millionaire. Not an influencer millionaire, not a fake it for Instagram millionaire, but a real one. Savings, retirement account, no debt, paid off apartment, affordable health insurance. The first time I saw a 7-figure sum on my banking app, I cried. Throughout those tough years, my family never reached out, not once. Only once did my brother flash across a suggested friends list. He was married, still living in the state they had disappeared to. I stared at the screen for a long time, wondering, did he ever tell his wife about me? Did he say I ran away? Or did he just silent? Sometimes I ask myself if it would have been easier to just hate them, but truthfully, it was never hate. It was heartbreak. Now, I go to therapy to stay unbroken. I made a list of the people who saved me when they didn't have to. Coworkers, classmates, strangers who showed me what real support looks like. Last week, a podcast interview I gave about surviving family estrangement exploded online. 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox filled with messages of support and gratitude. Strangers wrote that I had found the words to describe their own pain. And then, one email stood out from the rest. Subject, "You're still our daughter." It was from my mother. No apology, just a paragraph about how she heard my side and maybe we should talk. Then another message came from my brother. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at the screen for a long time before closing the laptop. I pondered, does healing mean looking back, or does it mean moving steadfastly forward? I didn't respond right away. I needed time. My therapist, Melissa, advised me to take at least a week before making any decision. Give yourself space to feel whatever comes up. There's no rush to respond. So I did. I focused on work, went to the gym, had dinner with friends, the usual. But those emails haunted me. I opened them, read them, closed them, and opened them again. My mom's message felt cold, almost clerical, as if she were addressing a distant acquaintance. My brother's was shorter, but somehow felt more genuine. I couldn't stop thinking about them. After 10 days, I decided to reply to my brother, Michael, first. Something simple. I wrote, "It's been 12 years. What changed?" and hit send before I could second-guess myself. His reply came in less than an hour. He said the podcast made him realize what they had done. He claimed he was only 15 when they left, that he didn't have a choice, that he'd always wondered about me, looked me up online, but never had the courage to reach out. He wrote that he was proud of my success. I didn't fully buy it. If he was so concerned, why wait until I was publicly successful? I asked him exactly that. His next email was longer. He confessed that they were facing serious financial difficulties, that our parents' business had failed, that his wife was pregnant with their second child, and medical bills were piling up. My heart sank. There it was, the real reason. I didn't respond again for a week. Then, my mom sent another email with attached old family photos. Me as a baby, us at the beach when I was perhaps 5 or 6, Michael and me building a snowman. Happy moments that seemed like stills from someone else's life. At the bottom, she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I showed the emails to Melissa. She reminded me that I was in control, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't owe them anything. But she also added that bringing this phase to a close might help me move forward, whether that meant reconciliation or a final goodbye. I nodded, but inside, a conflict raged. Part of me wanted to tell them to go to hell. Another part desperately wanted to understand why they abandoned me. And a tiny, stupid part of me still wanted their love. I decided to meet my brother first, only him, no parents. We arranged a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between our two cities. I flew in that morning, checked into a hotel, and tried to calm my nerves. I almost canceled 3 times. But at 2 p.m., I walked into that coffee shop and saw him immediately. He looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline, but his eyes were the same. He stood up, awkward and uncertain, when he saw me. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees like complete strangers. The first 20 minutes were agonizing. Small talk about the weather, my flight, his drive. Then he started apologizing. "Emma, I'm so sorry," Michael said, his voice cracking. "I was just a kid when it happened. I didn't know they were planning to leave you behind until it was too late. I was too scared to stand up to them." I just listened, searching his face for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but I'd been fooled before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind? He looked down at his coffee. "They always saw you as the strong one, the independent one, the one who would be fine on your own. They thought you'd be better off without them." It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMC and working night shifts at 17. His face crumbled. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They told me you had a plan, that you wanted to stay behind, that you were going to live with a friend's family, that you had chosen to separate from us." All lies. By the end of our meeting, I didn't know what to think. He seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of his wife and daughter, talked about his job as an accountant, asked about my business, and surprisingly, didn't directly ask for money. When we parted, he hugged me. I allowed it, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling nothing. Back at the hotel, I called Melissa. She pointed out that while Michael seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He was 15, not 5, old enough to call, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me, at some point in 12 years. That night, my mom called. I hadn't given her my number, so Michael must have. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice sounded older, raspier. She cried when I said hello and started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed, how special I was. I let her talk herself out. Then I asked her the same question I'd asked my brother. Why me? Her answer was different. "We were in debt, Emma. We couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. We knew you were smart enough to make it on your own. We figured you'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. We thought we were doing you a favor." I hung up on her. I immediately blocked her number, threw my phone across the room, and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, an email arrived from my father. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about Michael's wife needing surgery, and about them facing eviction. Then, at the very end, he asked if I could help the family out. Not a single question about my life, not a single acknowledgement of what they had done. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, "There it is." She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping and enabling, about what I truly wanted. By Monday morning, I had made my decision. I emailed my brother, telling him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when he was younger, and that I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, but with clear boundaries. no money, no loans, no financial support, and no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. His response was instantaneous and telling. "I'm really disappointed, Emma," he wrote. "Our parents really need help. Families should support each other. You're being selfish with your success." All the guilt buttons they had installed in me as a child pushed at once. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked an emergency session with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space. 3 days later, Michael called and left a voicemail, apologizing for his email. He said he understood my position, still wanted a relationship on my terms, and would respect my boundaries. I listened to it twice, trying to decide if he was sincere or just changing tactics. I decided to give him one more chance, but with my guard up. I went to Bali anyway. I spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields, and meditating. I needed the distance. When I returned, I had 6 more emails from my father, each more desperate than the last. I didn't read past the subject lines. I also had a text from Michael asking if we could talk. I agreed to a phone call, nothing more. The conversation started well. He apologized again for pushing. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me," he said. "I'm in therapy now too." I believed that part. He sounded different. We talked about his kids, about my business, normal things. Then he mentioned that our parents were coming to visit him next weekend. He asked if I would consider meeting them for just an hour in a public place. My chest tightened. "I'm not ready for that, Michael." He pushed a little, but backed off when I grew quiet. After we hung up, I called Melissa. We had an emergency session that night. She helped me realize I was afraid to see them. Not because I hated them, but because I still craved their approval. Still wanted them to love me. Still wanted to be enough. It was pathetic, but it was true. I cried for an hour in her office. The next day, Michael texted again. Mom cried all night after he told me I wouldn't meet them. Dad was talking about driving to my city anyway. I panicked. I immediately blocked Michael's number. Then I called my assistant and told her I would be working from home for the week. Ordered groceries for delivery, essentially hid in my apartment like a scared kid. On Wednesday, the doorman called up. He said there was a couple asking for me, wouldn't give their names. I knew instantly. I told him I wasn't accepting visitors. 5 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my father. "Emma, we drove 8 hours to see you. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I froze in bed, my heart racing. I checked the peephole. It was them. My parents standing in my hallway as if they had every right to be there. "Emma, please," my mom's voice came through the door. "We just want to talk to you. We know you're in there. We love you. We're sorry." I didn't open the door. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, shaking. Eventually, they left. I immediately called building security and told them not to let those people up again. The guard asked if I needed the police. I said, "No, just don't let them up." Then I called Melissa. She came over on her lunch break, brought me a sandwich, and sat with me while I cried. She told me I had every right to set boundaries, that I didn't owe them a meeting, and that what they were doing was harassment, not reconciliation. After she left, I received a furious email from Michael. He said I had humiliated his parents, said they were staying in a cheap motel they couldn't afford because they were so desperate to see me. He reminded me of his wife's upcoming surgery and asked if I couldn't help. He called me cruel. I didn't respond. On Friday morning, I decided I needed to leave town for a while. I booked a flight to visit my friend Rachel in Portland. She was one of the people who helped me when I was homeless. I was throwing clothes into a suitcase when the phone rang. Unknown number again. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, my doorman called. He said there was a woman downstairs who appeared to be having a medical issue, said she was asking for me by name, claimed to be my mother. I felt sick. I told him to call an ambulance if she needed help, but I wasn't coming down.
He agreed, though he sounded uneasy. I finished packing and headed downstairs an hour later. I carefully checked the lobby before entering. No sign of them. I felt relieved, but also strangely guilty. The doorman gave me a strange look as I passed. He said the ambulance had come, the woman had been having chest pains, and she had been taken to Memorial Hospital. I nodded and hurried out to my waiting Uber. At the airport, Michael called again. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom had a heart attack," he was crying. "She's in surgery. This is your fault for stressing her out." I hung up on him and called Melissa instead. She answered immediately. I told her what happened and asked if I was a terrible person. "Emma, listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself." I did. I spent the weekend with Rachel. She remembered when my family abandoned me. She remembered how broken I had been. She was furious on my behalf. "They don't deserve a minute of your time," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Not after what they did to you." It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I received an email from my father. Mom was stable. She had a stent put in, would be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed Rachel the email. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Said it was textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday. Flowers were waiting outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday. No apology, no acknowledgement of boundaries, just another demand." I threw the flowers down the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I received a text from an unknown number, a photo of my mom in a hospital bed, looking pale and small. The message said she might not have much time left. "Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number and called Melissa. She answered immediately. I told her what happened and asked if I was a terrible person. "Emma, listen to me," she said firmly. "You are not responsible for your mother's health. This feels like another manipulation tactic. Get on your plane and take care of yourself." I did. I spent the weekend with Rachel. She remembered when my family abandoned me. She remembered how broken I had been. She was furious on my behalf. "They don't deserve a minute of your time," she said, pouring me another glass of wine. "Not after what they did to you." It felt good to have someone so firmly in my corner. Sunday night, I received an email from my father. Mom was stable. She had a stent put in, would be released Tuesday. The email ended with, "She's asking for you. Don't you think you've punished us enough?" I showed Rachel the email. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Said it was textbook guilt tripping. I knew she was right, but part of me still felt responsible. I flew home Monday. Flowers were waiting outside my apartment door. The card said, "Please call us. We're staying at the Holiday Inn until Wednesday. No apology, no acknowledgement of boundaries, just another demand." I threw the flowers down the trash chute. Tuesday morning, I received a text from an unknown number. A photo of my mom in a hospital bed, looking pale and small. The message said she might not have much time left. "Do you really want to live with this regret?" I blocked the number and called Melissa. She suggested I take a social media break, change my number, maybe even stay with a friend for a while. I agreed. I told my assistant I would be working remotely for 2 weeks and packed another bag. Before I could leave, the doorman called again. He said there was a young woman downstairs with a small child, claimed to be my sister-in-law. I felt cornered. These people wouldn't stop. I told the doorman to send her up. I decided to face this head-on. The woman who knocked on my door looked exhausted. She had dark circles under her eyes and held a sleeping toddler against her shoulder. "I'm Jenny," she said quietly, "Michael's wife. I came alone because I wanted to talk to you without family drama." I let her in reluctantly. I offered her water. Jenny accepted gratefully. She laid her sleeping daughter on my couch, tucking a blanket around her. Then she sat at my kitchen table and started talking. "I only learned about you 3 years ago," she admitted. "Michael told me you ran away at 17, cut contact with the family. I always thought it was strange, but never pushed. Your podcast was a shock. I confronted him, and he finally admitted the truth.
I just listened, unsure what to believe anymore. I'm horrified by what they did to you, she continued. I insisted Michael reach out, but I had no idea they were going to ask you for money. I'm embarrassed and angry about that. Yes, I do need surgery for a thyroid condition, but we have insurance. Your parents are the ones in financial trouble, not us. I asked her why she had come. She looked me straight in the eyes. You deserve to know the whole truth. Your parents have been telling everyone that you abandoned the family, that you were mentally unstable, that you stole money from them before disappearing, and that they spent years looking for you. All lies to cover up what they had done. I felt like I'd been punched. How do you know this is true? She pulled out her phone and showed me Facebook posts from years ago. My mom asking for prayers to find her troubled daughter. My dad claiming I had taken all their savings before running away. Posts about hiring private investigators, about checking homeless shelters, all carefully crafted to make them look like victims, and all dated years after they had abandoned me. Jenny apologized for being part of it, even unknowingly. She said she had confronted my parents too, that they had admitted everything to her when she threatened to tell the whole family the truth, that they were desperate now because their lies were unraveling, that my podcast had people asking questions they couldn't answer. Her daughter woke up then, a cute little girl with curly hair. "This is Lily," Jenny said softly. "She's 3. I have another daughter on the way. I want my children to know their aunt, but only if you want that too. No pressure, no guilt, just an open door if you ever choose to walk through it." After they left, I sat in my apartment for hours processing. I called Melissa again, told her everything Jenny had said. She wasn't surprised. Abusers often control the narrative, she explained. They create alternate realities where they are the victims. She asked what I wanted to do now. Honestly, I didn't know. That night, another email arrived from my father. This one was different, angry, threatening. He stated that if I spread lies about them online, they would sue them for defamation. Said they had proof I had stolen from them. He threatened to go to the media with their side if I didn't take down the podcast and issue a public apology. He demanded financial compensation for the damage to their reputation. I forwarded it to Melissa, then to my lawyer, Marcus. He called me immediately. "This is an empty threat," he assured me. "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Save everything, but don't respond. I'll handle it if they actually file anything, which I doubt they will. People who are actually going to sue usually don't announce it first." The next day, Michael called. I let it go to voicemail. He sounded panicked. "Emma, Jenny told me she visited you. Our parents are furious. They're saying terrible things about her now too. Please call me back on Jenny's phone, not mine." I didn't know what to believe anymore. I called Marcus again. He suggested meeting Michael and Jenny somewhere public with him present as my lawyer, just to hear them out. I reluctantly agreed. We set up a meeting at a restaurant near Marcus's office for the next day. They showed up on time. Both looked terrible, stressed, exhausted. Jenny had a bruise on her arm. She kept trying to hide it. Michael couldn't make eye contact. "I'm Marcus, Emma's attorney," he said as we sat down, which made Michael flinch. We ordered coffee and they started talking. The story that came out was worse than I had imagined. My parents had been living off Michael for years, moving in and out of his house, taking money for emergencies, watching his kids while criticizing his parenting. When Jenny confronted them about me, my dad had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. Michael had kicked them out. They were now staying in a motel, calling constantly, showing up at his work. I listened without interrupting, watching my brother break down as he described how our parents had controlled him his entire life, how they had convinced him I abandoned them, how he had been too scared to question their version of events, how he had been trapped in their web of manipulation and lies for 12 years, and how he was terrified they would hurt Jenny or the kids. Marcus asked careful questions about financial entanglements, house titles, and bank accounts, about whether my parents had keys to their house. Michael answered everything, said they had co-signed his mortgage, said his dad was still on his bank account from when he was in college, said they had spare keys, said they knew all his passwords. By the end of the meeting, I felt drained but clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. Michael and Jenny were victims too, in their own way, different from me, but still trapped. Marcus suggested they speak to a lawyer of their own. He gave them a colleague's card, told them to change their locks, passwords, and bank accounts immediately. They nodded, looking overwhelmed but grateful. As we were leaving, Michael hugged me. This time, I hugged him back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something, a recognition that we had both been damaged by the same people, that maybe we could help each other heal. That night, I received a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my parents' numbers, accusations, threats, guilt trips. I blocked them all. Then I called Jenny, asked if they were safe. She said yes. They had changed the locks, stayed with friends the night before. We're looking into a restraining order. I felt relieved, but still worried. The next morning, I woke up to a ringing phone. It was Jenny, hysterical. "They broke into our house," she sobbed. "They took Lily's baby photos, important documents, Michael's laptop. They left a note. Family matters should stay in the family." I told her to call the police immediately, said I would meet them at their house, called Marcus on my way. When I arrived, a police car was outside their house. An officer was taking statements in the living room. The place was a mess. Drawers pulled out, papers scattered. Michael was sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Jenny was pointing out missing items to the officer. The officer seemed skeptical that grandparents would break in. "Are you sure they didn't just use a key? Maybe this is a misunderstanding." Jenny showed him her bruised arm, told him about the escalating behavior, about the threats, about them stalking them. He took notes, but didn't seem convinced. Said without evidence, it would be hard to prove who did this. After the police left, we cleaned up together. We found more missing things: photo albums, financial documents, the spare key to their car. Michael looked defeated. "This is my fault," he said. "I should have protected my family better, should have stood up to them years ago, should have looked for you harder." I didn't disagree, but I didn't pile on either. We were beyond that now. Marcus arrived as we were finishing, looked around grimly, said this changes things, that we need to document everything. that breaking in is a serious crime. He suggested we all stay somewhere else for a few days, that he would help us file for emergency restraining orders in the morning. We nodded, too exhausted to argue. Jenny packed bags for them, while Michael and I secured the house as best we could, changed the locks again, checked the windows, discussed security cameras. It felt surreal, taking these precautions against our own parents, but also necessary. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. As we were leaving, Michael received a text from our dad. Just 3 words: "We're watching you." He showed it to me, his hands shaking. I took a screenshot, sent it to Marcus. Then I made a decision. I told them they were coming to stay with me. My building had security, cameras, a doorman who already know not to let our parents in. They accepted gratefully. That night, the 4 of us ate takeout in my living room. Lily played with toys Jenny had packed. We talked quietly about next steps, restraining orders, police reports, changing phone numbers and email addresses, possibly moving to a new house, and long-term protection. It wasn't the family reunion I had ever imagined. Sitting there with the brother who had let me be abandoned, his wife who had believed lies about me, and their daughter who was innocent in all of this. But somehow it felt right, like we were finally facing the truth together. Like maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the ashes of what our parents had destroyed. The next morning, Marcus called. He said he had filed emergency restraining orders for all of us, said we needed to appear in court next week to make them permanent. He also reported the break-in to a detective he knew who was taking it more seriously than the responding officers had. He advised we all stay together until this was resolved. I agreed. I set up a workspace in my guest room for Michael. Jenny and Lily took over my living room, building pillow forts and watching cartoons. It was strange having people in my space. I had lived alone for years, liked my quiet routines, my clean counters, my empty sink. But there was something comforting about the noise too, about Lily's laughter, about Jenny's quiet humming as she folded laundry, about Michael's typing from the other room. It felt family, not the family that had abandoned me, but maybe the family we could become. That afternoon, my doorman called up. He said there was a delivery, flowers. I told him to check the card before sending them up. He read it to me. "We know where you all are. This isn't over." I told him to refuse the delivery. I called Marcus again. He said he'd add this to our case file. I didn't tell Michael or Jenny about the flowers. Instead, I ordered extra groceries, made dinner for everyone, and played with Lily, trying to create some normalcy in this bizarre situation. But that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my kitchen and finally let myself feel everything. The fear, the anger, the grief, the strange hope. I cried silently into a dish towel so no one would hear me. In the morning, Jenny found me making coffee and asked if I was okay. I lied, said yes. She didn't believe me. "It's okay not to be okay, Emma," she said gently. "I'm not either. Michael cries in the shower where he thinks no one can hear. Lily keeps asking when we can go home. This whole situation is terrible, but I'm grateful we're facing it together." I looked at her, this woman I barely knew, who was somehow now part of my life. I asked her why she had come to me that first day, why she had chosen to believe me over the family she had known for years. She smiled sadly. "I always felt something was off about your parents, about the stories they told, about the way they controlled Michael. The podcast confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't let my daughters grow up thinking abandoning a child was ever acceptable. We hugged then, the first time. It felt awkward but genuine, like the beginning of something. Not friendship exactly, not yet, but understanding, solidarity, a shared determination to break the cycle of mistreatment that had damaged us all. The next few days fell into a routine: working, cooking, playing with Lily, checking in with Marcus. We flinched at unexpected noises, jumped when phones rang, living in a strange limbo of domestic normalcy and underlying tension. We were safe, but not at peace. Together, but still healing. Family, but still learning what that meant. On Friday, Marcus called with news. The detective had found evidence. Security footage from a gas station near Michael's house showed our parents' car parked there during the time of the break-in. The restraining order hearing was set for Monday. He was confident we'd get approved. We all felt relieved, but still anxious. We were still waiting for the next escalation. It came that night, a brick through Michael's car window in the parking garage. No note this time. The message was clear. Building security footage showed a man in a baseball cap, his face carefully turned away from the cameras. We couldn't prove it was our dad, but we all knew. Sunday night, we sat together making a plan for court. What to wear, what to say, what evidence to bring. It felt surreal discussing our parents this way, like talking about dangerous strangers who unfortunately shared our blood. As we talked, my phone pinged with an email notification from my mom. Subject, last chance. I almost deleted it unread, but something made me open it. It was short, just one line. If you go to court tomorrow, you'll regret it for the rest of your life.
I showed it to Marcus, who had stayed for dinner. He took a screenshot, added it to our file, and told me not to respond. He said this kind of threat would only help our case. That night, none of us slept well. I kept checking the locks, listening for noises, wondering what my parents might do next. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. We dressed carefully, business casual. Jenny arranged for a friend to watch Lily. We drove to the courthouse in separate cars, just in case. We met Marcus on the steps outside. He looked confident, told us the evidence was strong. As we walked into the courthouse, I spotted them. My parents standing near the entrance, looking older and somehow smaller than I remembered. My mom saw me first, made a move toward me. My dad grabbed her arm, held her back. They watched us pass, didn't speak, just stared with a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. We filed past them into the building, followed Marcus to the courtroom, and sat together on a bench. I could feel my parents enter behind us, sitting on the opposite side of the room, but I didn't turn around. The judge called our case. We stood and took our places. Marcus calmly presented our evidence: the break-in, the threatening texts, the flowers, the brick, the email, the history of abandonment and manipulation. The judge listened carefully. When it was their turn, my parents approached the bench. No lawyer, just them. My dad spoke first, claiming we were exaggerating, that they were just trying to reconnect, that they hadn't broken any laws, that they loved us and wanted to make amends. The judge asked him directly about abandoning me at 17. My dad looked down, mumbled something about financial hardship. The judge's expression hardened. After hearing both sides, the judge granted our restraining orders. 3 years, no contact, no approaching our homes or workplaces, no messages through third parties. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. My parents looked stunned. As we left the courtroom, my mom called my name just once.
softly. I kept walking, didn't look back. With every step, I felt a weight lifting. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of it. The first real boundary that couldn't be crossed without serious consequences. Outside, Michael hugged me on the courthouse steps. A real hug this time. "I'm sorry, Emma," he said, his voice breaking, "for everything, for not protecting you then, for believing their lies, for bringing this chaos back into your life." I hugged him back, told him we were going to be okay, that we had each other now. As we walked to our cars, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. I almost didn't check it, but when I did, I felt a chill. It was a photo of Lily at her friend's house, playing in the backyard, unaware she was being watched. Below it, just 4 words. "This isn't over yet." I showed Michael the text immediately. His face went white. I called Marcus from the car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He told me to forward him the text and drive straight home. Said he would call the police and meet us there. The drive back felt like it took forever. I found Michael and Jenny in my apartment, Jenny clutching Lily. Michael was pacing. I showed them the text. Jenny started crying, said they had been watching her baby. Michael put his arms around them both, looking more determined than I'd ever seen him. Marcus arrived with 2 police officers. They took our statements, looked at the text, and promised to trace the number. But I could tell they didn't fully grasp how dangerous and desperate my parents could be. After the police left, we sat in my living room, trying to figure out the next steps. Jenny suggested a hotel. Michael suggested his cousin's house. I stood up suddenly. "I'm done running," I said. "Done hiding. Done letting them dictate how I live my life. They've already stolen my childhood. I'm not giving them my adulthood too." Michael looked at me like I was crazy. That night, we took turns keeping watch. Around 2 a.m., I spotted a car I recognized, my dad's old Buick. It circled the block 3 times before parking across the street. I took pictures with my phone, then woke Michael. Our dad was just staring up at my building, not approaching, not violating the restraining order technically, but letting us know he was there, watching, waiting. In the morning, I sent the photos to Marcus. He said it was concerning, but not technically a violation. I felt frustrated. Restraining orders were just pieces of paper. They couldn't stop someone determined to hurt you. Jenny and Michael decided to take Lily to a secure hotel for a few days. After they left, I sat in my empty apartment, feeling strangely calm, like I'd reached a point of no return. I called Melissa. She asked me the question that hit me hard. What do you actually want from your parents? I realized I just wanted to be free of them. That afternoon, I did something crazy. I emailed my parents. A short message. "I know you're watching my building. I know you're not going to stop, so let's talk one last time. Tomorrow, noon, the coffee shop on 8th Street. Just me. No police, no lawyers. After that, you leave us all alone forever." I hit send before I could change my mind. This was something I needed to do myself, for myself. I needed to say my piece. My dad replied within minutes, "We'll be there." The next morning, I dressed carefully, feeling strong. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I chose a table in the back corner. They arrived exactly at noon. They looked older, more tired than they had in court. They sat down across from me without speaking. I spoke first. "I called this meeting not to reconcile, not to give you money, or to hear excuses. I called it for you to understand one thing. It's over. You've lost. Not just the court case. You've lost me, lost Michael, lost your grandchildren, lost any chance at being part of our lives. And if you can't accept that, if you keep stalking us, threatening us, trying to force your way back in, I will destroy you. Father tried to interrupt. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I pulled out my phone and showed them screenshots of all their threats, the photo of Lily, the emails. I've sent copies to everyone in your lives, your siblings, your church, your neighbors, your employers, everyone. Not yet, but I will if you contact any of us again. If you come near our homes, if you so much mention our names to anyone we knew. My mother started crying. We just want our family back. We made mistakes, but we deserve another chance. We're getting older and don't want to die alone. I looked at her for a long moment. You should have thought about that before abandoning your 17-year-old daughter, before lying to everyone about what you'd done, before breaking into Michael's house, before threatening your own grandchild. My father got angry then. You're ungrateful. You've always been difficult. You've turned your brother against us. You owe us for raising you. I simply laughed, truly laughed in his face. Do you really think you're entitled to gratitude for doing the bare minimum as a parent for 17 years before completely abandoning me? Do you think your parenting was so stellar that I should be thanking you for it? He had no answer. I stood up to leave. This is your last warning. Next time you violate the restraining order, I won't just call the police. I'll make sure everyone you know exactly what kind of people you really are. I have the resources to make your lives very difficult if you force my hand. I will do it to protect my family, my real family. Michael, Jenny, Lily, the people I choose. As I walked away, my mom called after me. Do you really hate us that much? I stopped, turned around. I don't hate you. I feel nothing for you. You are strangers to me now, and that is your loss, not mine. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in years. I called Michael from the sidewalk, told him everything. He was relieved that someone had finally stood up to them directly. I returned to my apartment and decided to join Michael and his family at their hotel for a few days, just to be safe. When I got there, Lily ran to hug me. Auntie Emma, she called me for the first time. I almost cried. Jenny hugged me too. Michael just squeezed my shoulder. We spent the next few days in a strange limbo, waiting for my parents' next move, but nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no emails, no sightings of their car, just silence. 2 weeks passed, then a month. Nothing from my parents. Marcus checked in regularly. He said they had returned to their home state. Slowly, we began to live. Michael found a new job in my city. Jenny enrolled Lily in preschool. They bought a house 20 minutes from my apartment. We had dinner together every Sunday. We started building new traditions, new memories, a new kind of family, based on choice rather than obligation. I kept expecting to feel something about my parents, grief, maybe, or guilt, or anger, but mostly I felt relief, as if I had finally put down a heavy weight I had been carrying since I was 17. 6 months after the coffee shop confrontation, I received a letter, forwarded through Marcus, from my mother. It was short, only a few paragraphs. No excuses this time, no demands, just an acknowledgement that they had hurt me deeply, that they had failed as parents, that they understood why I wanted nothing to do with them, and that would respect the restraining orders. I keep that letter in my desk drawer, not because I'm ready to forgive, but because it represents something important. My parents finally recognized my right to set boundaries, my right to choose who I allow into my life, my right to define family on my own terms. Last week, Lily had her 4th birthday party. We celebrated at my apartment. Lily ran around in a princess dress, laughing. Michael and Jenny were nearby. My apartment, once so empty and quiet, was filled with life and love. I thought about that note on my kitchen counter 12 years ago. You'll figure it out. And I did. Not the way they meant, but I figured out what family should be, what love should look like, and what I deserved all along. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. I still have trust issues. I still go to therapy every week. I still flinch when my doorbell rings unexpectedly. But I'm healing. We are all healing, building something new from the broken pieces of our past. Something stronger, something chosen, something real. I don't have answers yet to whether I will ever reconcile with my parents. Maybe someday, maybe never. But here is what I do know. I am no longer defined by what they did to me. I am defined by what I built after, by the person I chose to become, and by the family I chose.